This is Michael Williams, the founder of the Start Speaking Training Center. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be looking at self-confidence and courage. Self-confidence and courage. Now, if you've been watching the other videos, I just want you to know that we are progressing through a series of training sessions as we build up to what I call the TAP, T-A-P approach. And once we get into that, I would consider that to be the meat of this program. And the things that we're talking about now in terms of the self-confidence, self-concept, self-esteem, those are all foundations, and those are all very important. Things that I didn't really deal with as completely as I could have in the DAM strategy. So we're looking at those things here because they're very important in helping us move from where we are now to where we want to be in the future. So today we're going to be looking at self-confidence and courage, and as we move through the progression of trainings that are foundational, in which we're almost done, we'll be looking at the TAP approach. And in the TAP approach, we're going to look at the fact that you are transforming. You're transforming. You're in a transformational process. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you do it? How does that impact how you speak? Okay? And then the A stands for actualizing or actualization. Now, I know these are big words, but I break them down for you and share with you exactly what they mean. So we talk about actualizing or actualization. We're talking about the internal process. You know, this work that we're doing is internal. In fact, the majority of the work that you do on your life and anything that you change in, any major improvement that you make in your life, the majority of it, I would say more than 80% of it, is internal. That is, changes that need to be made in your attitudes, in your thoughts, in your beliefs, in your emotions, and so forth. And then the P stands for patterning or patternization. Now, that's a word that I made up. I haven't really seen it on the web, and if I did see it, or if you do see it, it's not really used much. I don't think you'll find it in the dictionary. It's patterning or modeling, you could use that word. And that is where you actually find someone that you can model yourself after, that you can pattern yourself after. It's also a matter of picking something and practicing it over and over. That's picking a subject or topic, creating a presentation and practicing that, or reciting it over and over and over again. It's rehearsing it over and over and over again. And one of the things that helps is when you pattern yourself after someone else. So we'll dig deep into that, but I just wanted to let you know where we're going so that you wouldn't say, well, is this, or are you just going to talk about self-esteem and self-concept? I've read all that stuff already. You know, how do I stop stuttering? So I'm just sharing that with you. So let's look at today's lesson, which is about self-confidence and courage. Now, self-confidence, let's break that word down a little bit. Let's remove the self and look at confidence. There's a word in Greek that we find in the New Testament. It's pytho. And this word has to do with trust and belief and confidence. Trust, belief, and confidence. When we add self in front of that, it has to do with trusting, believing, and having confidence in oneself. Now, I know some people say, well, you know, shouldn't we have confidence in God, or shouldn't we have confidence in higher power? Well, none of us are completely autonomous. That means none of us can completely survive and do everything on our own. We all need some help, some assistance. We're all here by the grace of God. We all breathe by the grace of God. And so, in everything that we do, everything that we have, we must understand that we didn't get it all or do it all completely by ourselves. Now, in saying that, there is something that you and I have been given that allows us to have a certain degree of confidence and trust and belief in ourselves. That is, you and I must believe that we can do something before we actually do it. We must. Now, there are times when we might not think we can do something, but we do it anyway. We don't think we can do something, but we do. But there are some things that are so great, that take so much faith and trust and hard work and persistence that if we don't believe we can do it, we won't be able to do it. Does that make sense? So if you've been caught in the cycle of not being able to speak as fluently as you like, or stuttering or stammering or anxiousness, then the one thing that you need is a sense of self-confidence, right? A sense of courage. So what's courage? And we'll come back to the conference in just a second. So what is courage? Well, courage isn't, and you've probably heard this before, but courage isn't the absence of fear. So when you're courageous, it doesn't mean that there's never any fear, that you're never afraid. But courage, it's been said, is the ability to move forward in the presence of fear, in the midst of fear, despite having fear, despite being afraid. So it is your ability to go ahead and do it anyway, to take that step, even though you're afraid. That's courage. So when we talk about self-confidence and courage, what we're saying is that there are going to be times as you are transforming where you need to stand up in front of a group and speak even though you're afraid, even though you might stutter. You're going to need to stand up and you're going to need to do it. You're going to need to take a step and work through this program even though you might be afraid, is this going to work? I've tried things before, I've spent money before, I've gone to doctors, and I'm just afraid this is not going to work and I'm going to feel disappointed. Well, that may happen. But courage says that you're going to do it anyway. You're going to do it anyway, right? Confidence says that you believe that no matter if you have to try 100 programs, you're going to try it until you find the one that works. I tried all kinds of stuff until I found the combination of things that work for me. There are things that I'm doing right now to achieve certain goals, and I've been trying for 10 or 15 years. And just now am I starting to find the right combination of things. But you have to keep doing it. You have to have self-confidence and courage. Now, as we look at self-confidence, there's a couple of different ways that you and I can develop self-confidence. One way is through a very powerful technique that we've talked about before, and that is through the power of affirmations. So simply telling yourself, I can do this, I can do it, I can do it, and saying it with emotion, I can do this, I can do it. What you're doing is you are counteracting, if you will, that little voice that you can either hear or sense, the saying, you can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it, right? Sometimes when you get ready to say something, you're not going to be able to say that, you can't say that word, or you're going to screw up in this interview, you're not going to be able to do well, right? Haven't you heard that or felt that or sensed that? Absolutely. Or you're going to mess up, you're going to get nervous, you're going to freeze up, you're going to freeze up again, I bet you, right? So you hear that and you sense that. Well, what you're doing with these affirmations is you're counteracting that. You're saying, I can do it. I can. So you hear that voice coming, you're saying, I can do it. I can do it. Now someone says, well, I tried that and I still froze up anyway. That's right. You probably are. Keep doing it because that voice has been there. That voice is recorded there, right? What you're doing, or that message, that program is recorded. What you're doing is rewriting it. You're overwriting it, which takes time and effort, which is what we'll look at when we get into the T in the tapped approach. The fact that this is a process, it takes time and repetition and effort to overwrite that message until finally you start believing, I can do it. I'm at the point where I believe I can do almost anything that I put my mind to. Now I know that I can't fly without the assistance of an aircraft. Right? I don't think I'm Superman, and I know that there are some, that I have some limitations. There are some things that I can't do, maybe because I don't really want to do it, I don't have the energy to do it, or some things that maybe I'm simply not capable of doing. But the vast majority of things that I really want to do, I know that I can do it, and I'll tell you the second part of why I feel that way. So you keep telling yourself, I can do it, I can do it. It kind of pumps you up, if you will. It jacks up your self-confidence, and you start to feel like you can do it. And if you keep saying that, sooner or later you start to trust and believe, right, and have confidence that you can do it. Now let's look at the trust and the confidence. Where do those things come in? Well, you and I build trust and we develop confidence in something when we see it perform, when we know that it works, that it can work. You trust someone when they become what? Trustworthy. You trust someone when they become trustworthy. You trust your car because when you get in, most of the time it starts up, right? Most of the time it starts up. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the times it does. So, and you trust when you get on an aircraft or a bus or a motorcycle that it's going to get you from point A to point C, right? Skip over point B. Because it's done it before. It's done it before. Now, you develop greater trust and confidence in yourself when you've done it before. All right, so that's the second part of this self-confidence. First part is affirming, I can do it. I can do this. I can do this. Even when you mess up, and you are, right? But even though you mess up, I can do it. I can do it. And you just keep at it. You keep at it. But the second part to that, second way to build self-confidence is to keep doing it until you perform successfully. Keep trying different ways, different times, different situations until you perform successfully. And that's where the different parts of this program come in terms of practicing and rehearsing by yourself. Just like I'm speaking to this video, I used to do this years ago, but not in front of a video, but just in front of a mic. And I used to create these presentations and just practice them. And I would have some note cards and I would just go over it until I could do 45 minutes or an hour barely without looking at notes. And I could just do it just like that every time. I had all the information in my head. So I could stand in front of an audience and just do it, right? Because I had practiced it hundreds and hundreds of times by myself, my performance. So I had done it, so my performance was proof that I could do it. So when I said I could do it, I knew I could do it because I've seen myself, I've experienced myself giving those presentations before, even though it was by myself. Right? And then when I went out to do it in front of people and I did it without stuttering, then I knew I could do it. And so my trust and confidence increased. Does that make sense? So the second way is for you to build successful speaking situations or build successful situations in anything. You tell yourself you can do it, but you also have to do it. Even if you do it by yourself or you do a little bit or one part of it, you do it successfully, incrementally, right? And you see that success and you realize it, you recognize it, you rejoice in that little success, and that builds your confidence. And then when you say, I can do it, your subconscious says, hey, you can do it because you did it before. Does all this make sense? Sure, yes. Say yes. Say yes, because it makes sense that you can build your trust and build your confidence by performing well, by continuously performing, and you can build it also by telling yourself that you can do it because you're overriding that little voice that says you can't do it. You put those two things together and you develop a great degree of self-confidence. Now the courage comes in by knowing that you can do it, by feeling that you can do it, and then stepping out and doing it, right? Just stepping out and doing it. And each time you act courageously, even when you don't feel like it, you may not feel courageous, but you act courageously, you literally act yourself into feeling more courageous. So when you take courageous steps and courageous actions, then you start to feel and actually be courageous. All right, so today what we've looked at then is self-confidence. We've broken down that word and talked about what confidence means and talked about when we put the self on there. And we've also talked about that we understand that we're not completely autonomous, that we do have to have some faith and belief in God, or maybe for some of you in some other higher power. We've also talked about courage, and that doesn't mean that you're not afraid. It means you act in spite of fear. And we've talked about two ways that you can develop self-confidence, and that is, one way is through affirming, I can do this. I can do this. And then second, understanding, well, let's back up. And then as we affirm, understand that the reality is you're probably still going to mess up sometimes, but you keep affirming, right? Because you're overriding those messages that says you can't do it. And then the second way that works with the first way is to actually perform, to actually practice and do that thing. Figure out different ways or times you can do it successfully so you can build on those successes and you really can say confidently, I can do it because I did it. All right. Thank you very much. We are going to continue to progress through this, and in one of our next sessions we're going to look at something that's very important, and that is control. And not just self-control, but control, and we'll talk about what that means. That's critical. That's almost that's if not the most important element here, but it's one of the most important things that we're going to talk about is control. When I say control, I'm talking about controlling your speaking situations. So we'll look at that in another session, and I'll see you later. This is Michael Williams, the Power Coach Approach.